Hey everyone, this is Jono. So in this video, I want to walk through a simple and practical mechanism for how you can get really useful feedback on your work. And the reason why this is important is that when we get this useful feedback, we can make changes and improvements, and our work can be better and better and better, okay? So I'm going to walk through 4 pretty simple steps that you can go through that you can apply right now, today, to get this really constructive feedback. Now, before I go into these steps, I just want to talk a little bit about mindset, because these 4 steps are only going to be useful if you have the right mindset. And I used to have the wrong mindset, okay? So years ago, I was a little bit anxious about getting constructive criticism about my work. I was quite happy for people to say the work was good, or the work that my team was doing was good, but I didn't really create opportunities for people to share particularly constructive feedback with me. I wasn't putting surveys out there. I wasn't asking people bluntly, is there anything I can be doing to improve or adjust in my work? And I think the reason why is because I was kind of insecure about it. I was worried that they were going to say something, it was going to bother me, it was going to upset me, and that would send me into a bit of a tailspin. Luckily, a couple of years later, I kind of shifted that mindset. I actually saw other people taking constructive criticism. They got a lot out of it, and that really changed my mindset. And now I'm kind of hungry for it. I'm hungry for people to tell me areas in which I can improve and optimize and do better and better work, okay? So let's dig into these 4 steps, all right? Now, let's put them on the board. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Now, the first thing you're going to want to do is to create a mechanism, okay? So you're going to want to create a means to get 2 different types of feedback, all right? And the 2 different types are going to be broad, so broad feedback from a broader audience of people, and specific feedback from specific individuals, right? So broad feedback is going to be, let's say, for example, you're building a community. It could be from your community members. If you're running a business, it could be from your team members and your employees. If you're a manager, it could be from your individual employees on your particular team. If you're a partner, it could be, gathering feedback from the other partners that you've got, okay? The way I like to do this is with surveys, okay? And there are various survey platforms out there. I'm a big fan of Typeform, but if you want to use a free service, you can use Google Forms. There's loads of them out there. And you put a survey together. I'd recommend somewhere between 5 and 7 questions, super quick that somebody can fill in, and you can get great feedback. And I actually do this all of the time. So for example, when I run my Zero to Community Masterclass, after every training session, I ask people to fill in a 3-question survey, and I get really great feedback and responses that help me to improve the masterclass over and over again. When I run my completely free Community Ignition workshop, I also run surveys after each of the different workshop sessions, and I get really awesome feedback from my attendees, okay? If you want to find out more about the Zero to Community Masterclass and the Community Ignition Framework workshop, you can go and find the links down there in the video description, okay? But sometimes you want to get individual feedback, and especially if you want to get some sensitive feedback from some specific people, such as like your manager or a colleague or a partner or a customer, you might want to go specific. And with this, the best way to do this is with one-on-one calls, okay? So put half an hour in the schedule, get on a call with them, and then you can ask them some specific questions. Now, this all leads us to the next step, which is you've got to provide permission. You see, here's the trick to all of this. People are often very willing to share good things. They're willing to tell you on a call or potentially even in surveys the things that they like and the things that are going well. Sometimes it's easy to be a little bit more critical in surveys, but certainly on one-on-one calls, people are generally more comfortable sharing the things that they like. But what we really want to hear is going to be some constructive criticism. It's good to hear what you're doing well, but the constructive criticism are the gems that you're looking for, because when you've got constructive criticism, you can figure out what the problem is, and then you can make those changes, and then you're going to be better and better and better, okay? So when you get on a one-on-one call, or I like to say this even in the survey blurb or the email where I send the survey out to people, is I'm looking for constructive criticism, okay? It's really important to tell them, I want constructive criticism. Put it in your survey email, put it in the text in your survey, say right up front on the one-on-one calls that you're looking for that. Now, if you want to go an extra layer deeper in making it super clear that you're open to constructive criticism, the word that I like to use, and not everyone's going to want to use this, is unoffendable, right? We all know what the word offend means, right? It's constantly thrown around in popular culture, especially these days. You know, this group was offending this group and this group was offending this group. It means saying something that really kind of deeply bothers somebody. And when I want to give permission to people, this is just me speaking personally, I want to make it clear that they can say whatever they want, that is constructive. And that's the key thing. It's got to be constructive. You know, if somebody starts being abusive, racist, transphobic, misogynistic, all of those things, I'm not interested in any of that. That's terrible, right? But if they're going to be constructive, I want them to be able to say whatever they want. Then I'm going to get the really good stuff, okay? So I like to use the word unoffendable. Now, step 3 here is once you kind of engage in those one-on-one calls or when you send those surveys out there, is you need to file this feedback correctly. And there's 2 places you really need to file it, right? Let's get these on the board here. You need to file it on your computer, so you can go and refer to it, and you need to file it in your brain, okay? Which I'm gonna get to in just a second. So whenever you go in a one-on-one call, I'd recommend, as you're getting, you know, good feedback and constructive, critical feedback, is you list it all down in a document. Open up a Google Doc or a Coda Doc or a Notion Doc or whatever, and make sure that you get it all written down, okay? And I actually like to, so put it in a document. What I actually like to do is to make it almost like a to-do list, to list it as one line, and then what you're going to do later on is to kind of come back and review the document and say, okay, well, I got this piece of criticism, what can I do to improve it? So let me give you an example. I put out a YouTube video a while back, and one of the comments that I got on it was you know what, Jono, I love your content. I think you provide lots of really valuable feedback and guidance and recommendations, but your videos are just way too long. They're just super long. I feel like you could say the same thing a lot more quickly. And this person was completely correct. My video was like 20, 30, 40 minutes long because I was trying to add as much value as I could, but they were just too long. That was super constructive. It was very constructive and it was critical, right? So I wrote that down in my document and thought, well, okay, well, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna map out my videos now and hopefully get through them a lot quicker, okay? So I'm hoping this one's not gonna be too long, all right? And as a general rule, my videos since then have been a lot shorter and a lot more focused, okay? So get them into the document, but then figure out what are you gonna do in response to that and then put something practical in place, okay? And the important thing here, when you come up with your solutions, is progress over perfection. You don't have to completely nail and fix everything. Just start with something and you're going to get better results, okay? Now, the next step here is you need to then file it in your brain. And what I mean by this is this again comes back to mindset, okay? Is that you need to make sure that you've got the right kind of mindset when it comes to this constructively critical feedback, right? And the way I tend to think about it is that, as I mentioned earlier on, is when you get constructive criticism, it is an absolute gem. And the reason why it's a gem is because essentially what's happening here is somebody's giving you something that's broken, and it's kind of like there's a body on the floor, right? That's your body, okay? And when you've got this kind of failure or this flaw that's there, you can inspect it. Well, where is it laying? What caused it to lay there? What are the reasons why I've ended up this place? What can I do to prevent this from happening again in the future? It gives you something to analyze, okay? So somebody says you're a little bit short, a little bit, you know, overly angry with people in meetings, right? Well, you can say, well, what are the causes for that? Why am I behaving that way? What can I do to stop being that way? How can I check myself before I wreck myself? All those kinds of things, okay? Maybe a piece of critical feedback is that you're sending people overly spammy emails. Well, okay, well, why don't we go and take a look at how we can reduce the number of emails that go out to make them more valuable to people? Maybe a criticism is that the community that you've set up is kind of boring and there's nothing really going on. Well, maybe we can increase the value that we can kind of put into that community. So the reason why we need to change the mindset is if we look at this criticism as, oh God, this is an attack on me, it's an attack on my personality, on who I am, then you won't look at it through the right angle and you won't get the benefits from it, okay? And honestly, that's no way to live your life. You don't want to live your life in a way where you feel like every piece of constructively critical feedback is an attack on you, because most of the time it isn't going to be an attack on you. And if you block your world to those learnings, then we don't get better, okay? So I'd really strongly encourage you to try and look at this through a positive lens. It takes practice, it won't happen overnight. If you've got questions about how to do that, I'd love to hear them, and maybe we can share our experiences with each other and how to do that. Absolutely let me know, because it does take time to get there, but it's absolutely worth it, okay? And then the fourth step here is to then reward the person who gives you this feedback, okay? And this is especially important when you get critical feedback. This might sound counterintuitive. In many cases, when we get critical feedback, we kind of ignore it and push it to one side. A lot of companies do this, where they get criticism and the PR team is like, we should not respond to it, we should not give it oxygen, we should not give it air. And this is completely ridiculous. This is not the way to respond to things, okay? If somebody gives you constructive criticism for your company or individually, we should use that as a gem. It's something that's super valuable. Okay, pushing it to one side is the worst thing we can do. So what I like to do here is, if somebody gives me some really good constructively critical feedback, is to actually send them a reward. And the first thing you can do here is you could just say thanks, you know? But another thing you can do here is to maybe just send them a gift, right? So, for example, this lady one time, I was on a call with her, and I didn't really know her very well. I got introduced to her because a friend of mine said that she'd been a little critical of me, of some work that I'd done to them, and I said, well, I'd love to get on a phone call with her and understand a little bit more about her concerns here. And her concerns were that this webinar that I did was way too technical, that I was talking too technically about how to build a community. I wasn't talking to a broad enough audience, okay? And she shared this feedback and she gave really good examples and she was super polite and constructive, and I really enjoyed our conversation. We've actually become friends since then. And in the call, I actually asked her, like, you know, just in a little bit of small talk, like what she's interested in, what she likes to do. And she told me that she loves dogs, and I love dogs as well. So at the end of the call, I said to her, you know, obviously feel free to say no to this, but I'd love if you wouldn't mind sending me your address, because I'd love to just send you a little token of my appreciation. And I found some organic dog treats that are made in Portland, of course, organic dog treats, where else would they be made? And I shipped them to her with a little handwritten note and said, I really appreciate it. You know, the feedback that you shared was super helpful. And since then, the webinars and the feedback that I put out there has been not assuming a technical audience, which I think has been beneficial to everybody, okay? So these are the steps, you know? Put in place a mechanism for broad and specific feedback. Make sure you give your audience permission to be constructively critical. You might want to say that you're unoffendable. File it in a document and make sure you file it in your brain so you've got the right kind of mindset, and then reward people who give you this kind of useful information, okay? So that's it. I hope this was useful, as I'm hoping you will know by now. If you've seen my videos previously, if you know what I do, or if you're brand new, I am an open door. I love to hear your questions, your input, your ideas, your feedback, your perspectives. I'm unoffendable. Let me know what you think. And you know, feel free to let me know what you think. I want to answer as many questions as I can, and I'll see you on the next one.